staffing in here now, but seriously, this is like such a great event so far. Cool. Well, I'm excited to talk about this idea of longevity in podcasting, specifically talking about the first 10 episodes. Before we do that, we'll do a quick introduction. I'll be moderating today. My name is Alex Sanfilippo. I run a company called Podmatch, which is a service that connects podcast guests and hosts for interviews. I always say it works kind of like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, connects you for podcast interviews. And I'm really grateful for JPU and being part of this and just being having the opportunity to be here to moderate this panel here. And we'll just go in order, so go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Letisha Bereola. I'm the Director of Podcasting here at WJCT. You may recognize me from the news. I was on Action News Jax for 7-8 years before I moved into podcasting. I also have a podcast business, Paradigm Media Group, where we produce podcasts and do consulting for people. And I'm so happy you're here. Side note, WJCT has podcast services, and so part of this is to not only build relationship with local podcasters, but also to help support your launch. So come talk to me if you're interested in that.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Smith, one half of the Wait For It podcast. I also have a Jacksonville Jaguar podcast called Touchdown Jaguars. We have been podcasting since 2018 and coming to the JPU since 2019. So we've gotten to meet amazing people such as Alex and getting to see this grow with Botter and Blythe, and yeah, super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm the other half of the Wait For It podcast. My name is Eric Cerna. We've been doing this since 2018. We've also been in the local convention scene since about 2020, 2021. So doing some in-person hosting and interviews as well, in addition to audio, and in the last 2 years, video podcasting as well. Everything pop culture that you can think of is our topic.
You're not involved in the Jaguars one?
No, I am not. I am a fan from afar.
Okay, cool. All right.
And when they're good, I come to the forefront.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Eric's involved when the Jags are winning, so
yes.
he hasn't been involved in 10 years. Yes. Anyway, cool. So back to this idea, the first 10 episodes, and the reason I like that we pick that number for this is I want to just give you guys a very high-level stat, but the chances of a podcaster making it from one episode, not zero, like the plans to start and then actually starting are very different, right? But from one episode to 10, the likelihood is under 40%. So less than 40% of people who start a podcast, release an episode, release 2, 3, 4, 5, don't actually make it to 10 episodes. And that's why I think it's really important to talk about, because more than half of people are dropping off before reaching this point. And there has to be some reason for that. And I'm hoping that that's what we're going to be able to kind of decode today. And so I'm excited to get into that. And I just think that having the understanding that, like, okay, this is maybe not as easy as it seems, or maybe not as simple as it seems. Like, we all kind of need to have that perspective and mindset. So what I want to do is I want to jump into, first off, two things that I'll share, and then we're getting the main points. But when we polled a bunch of podcasters, 1,800 to be exact, we found that self-care and self-discipline were the two top contributing factors. And we're not going to talk about it today. That gets into probably a different type of conference altogether, right? But the idea of being self-disciplined, saying I'm committed, I'm going to stick with it, and also saying at the same time I'm going to take care of myself and not skip sleep every night to podcast. Like, those two things really, really matter. We're not going to get into those today, but for each of you, I think it takes really going back to your purpose, to your why for podcasting in the first place, to question, okay, do I have my self-discipline, my self-care proper to reach even that 10 episode mark? So I just want to kind of preface it with that, and then I want to get into some questions here. And Letisha, we're going to start with you today. And what I found is that so many podcasters, I'm talking about like at the 10 level, or 10 episode level, right? So like getting to that level, they quit because they feel lost even just a few episodes in. They start creating content and they kind of feel like, okay, my last episode is really different than this one. I'm kind of all over the place with the topics. I don't really have a niche, a focus. How important is it from the start that we get the idea for our show really right and start executing on that?
First, let me get a show of hands of how many people have yet to start their podcast. Okay,
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
who's in the minutia of it now with a couple out and you're trying to get through it? Okay.
Very cool.
So I think first for the people who haven't started, I want to encourage you to just take some time to think about the rest of the year, or actually think about a year from now. So this is August. I would go from August 2025 to August 2026 and think, okay, what does my life look like in the next year? The holidays are coming up, right? And so around end of November, I'm probably gonna not wanna podcast, right? So think about big events. My birthday is in the summer of next year. I probably wanna take a break around then. So one of the things I do with my clients is I have them literally look at the month ahead or the year ahead and start scheduling out their seasons, unless you're an always on and every week. But start thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do 5 episodes between September and Thanksgiving, and I'm gonna close out season 1 I'm gonna go enjoy my holidays, and I'm gonna come back spring of 2026. And I'm gonna podcast from spring until the summer. And I'm gonna close that out, and I'm gonna go have my summer, and I come back. So the reason why I say this is like, if you tell your brain like what we're about to do, you're gonna have a plan. Podcasting, guys, once you start, it's like, there is no stopping, right? It's not like it's not like a documentary where you do it one time and it's out, or a film and it's out. Podcasting, like, there is no end date. So you kind of have to come up with your own end date for your lifestyle. And then one other thing I will say is, so like, schedule out how many you want to do. There's no right or wrong. You can start with 5, you can start with 10. And I think the next thing I would do is think about how you're going to let people know you have a podcast, my friends. So what happens is that there's so much to learn, right, around how to even, what microphone, what platform, what am I going to talk about? Do I have 10 ideas in my head?
Editing.
Then it's like, okay, once you get there, then you actually have to do the thing. Don't forget you have to push play and record and make sure you sound good. And then you got to edit the thing. Then you got to get a good title and show notes. So you're already ready to quit, right, as I'm talking. But what people tend to forget is how they're gonna tell people they have a podcast so they can have listeners. Podcasting doesn't really have an algorithm. Like, you are stuck inside a random app. And so it's not like TikTok where it's gonna serve up your show to your preferred audience. You have to think, how am I gonna get people to come to my podcast app? So we can get into more of that later, but just, I want you to think about, okay, have it mapped out. How am I gonna let people know? Is it family and friends? I'm gonna send a mass text when it's live. Is it Instagram? Whatever, wherever you're at, Facebook, identify where you're gonna start promoting it and then commit to that.
That's great. Do either of you guys have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely identifying and how to promote it, because I have a podcast is the 2020s version of I'm in a band. So, everyone, you should come listen to my band. Like, you should listen to my podcast. I have a podcast. So, yeah, setting attainable goals is very important. Definitely not getting caught up in the numbers, and Eric will expand on that here in just a little bit. Early on, for sure, we're putting all this time and effort into a show that, honestly, as far as quality-wise, was not good. And we were like, why isn't anybody listening to this? And we were uploading on SoundCloud, which is a terrible space for podcasting, and doing things
Literally for
like
bands.
that. For bands. We had a band. We started a band. We would have been good.
A band before a podcast.
But yeah, so just setting attainable goals and knowing that those numbers initially probably aren't going to look very good, and also don't be afraid to, like you mentioned, setting is like what episode count do I want to, like, what is working, what's not working. Don't be afraid to adjust if something is not working, even early on. And that's a lesson we had to learn way too late, unfortunately. Not too late, but like, we learned it way later than we should have.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of the theme with everybody that you ask, how did your first 10 episodes go? Everyone's gonna be like, learn from my mistakes. Right? You're gonna get 4 different answers here. If you ask that question to everyone that you're networking with today, you're gonna get 100 more different answers. The thing I would say is try to really take what applies to you, your niche, what your purpose is, and take those things and find out what works for you, and understand you're gonna make your own mistakes as well in those first 10 episodes. You wanna hold yourself accountable to those mistakes, you wanna learn from them, but don't let them cause you to give up, right? I mean, that's really at the end of the day. We've been doing it since 2018, so years now, and we're still learning. We're having conversations today about what can we improve, what can we do differently, where did we go wrong? That stuff happens along with all the success that podcasters see.
Yeah. Listen, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. We kind of want to go during this. So if something comes up right now that is on track with what we're talking about, let's go ahead and look at that. Let's go ahead. Yeah, what do you got?
So you're saying maybe 5 episodes, maybe 10 episodes, like the initial idea of trying to say, you figure out where your niche is. Do you plan the 10 episodes, or do you try to just like, I'm going to get, what is your opinion of the best? Dive in and see how deep the water is, or try to go look and see?
Opposite. I would plan your first fill in the blank. So if it's your first 10, I would brain dump 20, 30 ideas that speak to you that are really easy. Like, I want to talk. What's your interest for podcasting?
Real estate or sports.
And who would your audience be?
Jacksonville Jaguar fans?
Fans. So we'll do football, right? So it's like, okay, I want to talk about Jags, and I want football fans to listen. So put yourself in their shoes. I want to talk about Travis Hunter's is in town. What's that going to be? I'm going to talk about, the new field that they're going to build and what that means. So like brain dump 30 ideas, and then when you're done with that, be like, okay, these what excite me. These first 10, 8, 7, who cares? And say, I'm going to go until I knock these out. And one thing I will say too is like take your listener along the way. So if like you want to like just don't abruptly stop, right? So if you're going to do like 10 or 8 or some odd number, tell them tell them you're nearing the end of your season, when you're going to come back. So don't be afraid to pause and come back, but just don't leave your listener hanging. Is that helpful?
Yep.
So plan.
Yeah, and I think I'll give a contrast to that because I think that's the way it should go. That's absolutely like 100% the way you should do it. Our brains don't always work the same. So for me, I'm an over-prepper. So I'm going to think about it and think about it and think about it. I'm never going to press start because I'm going to over-plan and overdo it. So sometimes you can just do it, but understand that there are going to be some consequences to that, right? Obviously, if you're more planned for something, things are going to go much better in certain areas than if you just press start. But some people just need to do it. And we're definitely big advocates of that because a lot of people can just get frozen. I mean, we'll be at these events and we'll meet someone who's saying, I've wanted to start a podcast for like 3 years and I just haven't. To that person, maybe scheduling it out, maybe that isn't going to work for that person. They need to start and they need to get into the grind of it. You can ask either of us about our story. We've had a long journey from 2018, from inconsistencies to maybe some overcorrections to finally finding that really great middle ground that works for us. But that took years to figure out. For some of you, following that pattern, you're going to figure that out right from the get-go and not have those issues. But for others, you might need to go through that journey to really learn what you need to learn.
And I will say, I started around the same time. I didn't do that, right? I was like, I want a podcast. And I started the podcast. And I'm like, I got to do it again next week. I got to do it again the next week. Dr. Baxter was one of my guests. What year was that? 2015?
Yeah, I think 2016.
16, right? I'm like, I got to get another Dr. Baxter. So it kept me going. But like, speaking of burnout and like now hindsight, and now that there's things like this, I would probably take my advice and be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't just start. Maybe I should think it through a little bit. Yeah.
So I did, and we'll get to that question in just a moment. Just so everyone knows, like going back to this whole idea of like having a niche, having something that you focus on, is just really important because it helps with that process. There's the old, this happened in education a lot. If anyone here ever took a class that was just too easy for you, you could never stay focused on it because it was like, I can do this in my sleep, right? There needs to be some level of challenge, and that's why choosing a niche is not just like, I can come up with 1,000 topics on my podcast about everything. It's too easy. You need to say, my podcast is about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Therefore, it needs to relate to fans of the sport and of this particular team. Like, what are they feeling, right? It helps you actually build something out. When I launched my show, I planned 52 episodes because I committed to 1 year. So an episode a week for a full year. And I planned all that out and I tweaked it along the way. I adjusted it. But the point was, I knew who I was serving and I was able to consistently find new things to cover. Even though, I moved around a lot, but having that helped a lot. Yes, you had a question over here.
Yeah, I was just curious because I do know what I'm going to do on my podcast, but I went through a lot of my interest in different things, and some of them just don't lend itself, it seems like, to podcasting. Like, for instance, I'm a great sewer, I'm a great quilter, I like to cook sometimes, not much, but anyway. But those things seem to be topics that you couldn't do a podcast on.
Says
see what you're
who?
doing.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, you would be.
How can you tell somebody how to sew when you can't?
Well, tell me right now, how do you sew?
How do I sew?
What's the first
what's
thing you
your
do?
process?
Yeah, what's your process?
Decide on what I'm gonna make, then do my pattern, get a pattern, and then get the fabric, and then cut it out.
So each one of those you just named are episodes.
Deciding
Those
what
are
to
3
make for the whole
episodes.
episode.
Starting with, how to decide what to sew. This is what I do. Next is, how to decide what to get at a fabric store. Next one is, how to find the right tools. So if you can talk about it to your friend, you can podcast about it.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged with that.
And I think one thing I like to tell people, I think I've told a few people here today about this that I see in the room, is what is your measure of success? So what is your why? but also what's your measure of success? So if you want to be the next biggest podcaster and you want to have millions of downloads, well, that's one goal you can have. But I would argue that an equally successful podcast can be 10, 50, 100 people listening to what you're trying to do. And depending on those individuals, when you get a sponsorship, you don't need millions of downloads for that. You might have a sewing sponsorship because of the episodes you're putting out, and the audience you have specifically follows you to learn about those methods. That's a huge success. That could be a great measure of success. So it just depends on what is your purpose, what's your why, and then I would also just add a measure of success. What does that look for you? If you can help one person out there sew something or learn how to sew, is that your measure of success? Because that's equally as valuable as I'd like 1 million downloads and 1 million people to listen to me.
Yeah. Phil, we're going to jump to you in just a second. I just want to throw this out there because I love creative podcasting. I think it would be really cool is if it, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name. What was your name?
Jeannie Anderson.
Jeannie? Okay, I think like sewing with Jeannie would be really fun. Like, what if you had the podcast be more of like an experience? It's people that are also sewing, but want to feel like they're in the conversation. Right, yeah. You're sitting there, you're actually sewing, and then you can share the rest of your thoughts on how you kind of like to cook sometimes, but usually not, right? Like, you can share those thoughts or even have them on with you, and you're both just sewing and having a little conversation, right? Like, make it educational, but also just a fun element of like, oh, I can listen to this while I'm sewing, so I'm not alone with Jeannie now, right? So anyway, I digress. I just love creative thinking around podcasting.
Maybe a good example, because I'm a pop culture guy, like Hot Ones, they eat chicken wings, but they don't just talk about chicken wings, they're talking about everything.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sure the idea for the episode wasn't let's talk about chicken, but that might be at the center of it. I could see an idea like that, and whether you do it audio, you add that video element, these are things you can start planning to do at the beginning, or you can grow into. Yeah. That's absolutely possible.
All right, Phil, I want to move this along here. I want you to jump on this. So one of the things I noticed, especially early on for us podcasters, we're trying to figure the whole thing out, right? So like every episode feels like you're putting out a fire, the whole process. So from like start to finish, like, okay, what else do I need to do? How important did you discover that having an actual flow that was coherent through all episodes, how much did that impact the show itself, and do you suggest that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, in the very beginning, we were putting out episodes randomly. There was no set day. One minute we were talking about wrestling, then we would talk about Marvel, and it just didn't make any sense. I've done stand-up comedy for over 10 years as well, and it took me a good 6 to 8 years to actually find my voice, and it's the exact same thing with podcasting. Finding your voice, finding your flow, finding your niche. That word's going to come up a lot here today. But once we were able to streamline what's working, what's not working, what are we comfortable with, what are we not comfortable with. We used to do a lot of movie reviews. So does everybody else. Cut it. You know what I mean? So what's going to show up on the quote-unquote algorithm that you have to force. You have to force yourself into the algorithm. You have to force yourself into the conversation. So being able to navigate and also identify what is not working, I think was probably more important than finding out what was.
Yeah, 100%. And like, we'll still do movie reviews, but we might save that for a different form of content. Yeah. So a TikTok, a YouTube Shorts, do something a little bit more direct to that consumer audience versus a whole episode. But we're still very passionate about movies. So we started a series where we would just watch films that we missed out on. It's called Late to the Party. And that idea stemmed from us wanting to niche down. And niching down doesn't always mean just one topic. So when we said pop culture, that included wrestling, that included sports, not just the Jaguars. I'm a Giants fan, being born from New York. That's my first love, Jaguars second. It's hard to love, but they are my second. So again, we just kind of talked about everything we loved and we liked, and we niched down in a way that made sense for us where we had more episode themes. And that was one of the episodes we created out of that niche down while still being true to what we wanted to do. So kind of sharing our love for movies, but in a more concentrated way where if somebody comes to listen to that episode, they know exactly what perspective we're giving and what they're going to experience.
What I found for most of us in podcasting, and maybe I'm alone in this, so forgive me if it's just me, I tend to overcomplicate things just naturally. So like when I first started the podcast, there was like, I built out like a standard operating procedure. So like all the steps I do every time, I started building that out, and I thought that was like a good thing for me to do. I had like 100 things I was doing every episode. And so I was like going through it, I'm like, man, this is a lot. And like sometimes I would like procrastinate because I'm like, I don't want to do the next 30 things on the list, right? Like there is so much. And then somebody who was like a podcasting mentor, I don't even remember who it was, but somebody I was like just listening to, he was like, the only thing you have to do to be a podcaster is consistently release episodes. And I was like, oh shoot. I'm making a blog post, which I'm not saying any of these things are wrong. I'm making graphics, I'm posting on Instagram, TikTok, here, and then I'm doing this, and I'm repurposing it here, and then I'm emailing all these people. And I was like, oh wait, I'm doing everything. Like I'm trying to be a full-on media company by myself when I'm working a full-time job. At that time, I was still working a 9-to-5 job, which was supposed to be 9 to 5. It was more like 7 to 7, right? That type of job. Everyone familiar, right? So I'm like, okay, I got to go home. I got a podcast now and stay up all night. Again, really taking away the self-care in it. But I think that so many of us, when we get started, we overcomplicate things. At the end of the day, all that really matters is consistently releasing episodes of the podcast. Everything else, if you're a podcaster first, right, everything else is optional. And I think that getting our mindset right around that and figuring out what the key steps are is really important. Does anybody have a question on this topic here before we continue?
I have one comment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you just keep setting yourself up. You got a podcast on Touchdown with the Jags, and then you said you were a stand-up comic.
I do voiceover. Do a little bit of everything. So.
No, I'm just thinking.
I follow you.
Jags
The
are-
Jags
I
are-
follow
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Could be a comedy podcast. Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is going to be
it'll
our
work.
year, everybody.
Of
You'll
course, I
watch.
should
This is
say
it.
Gerard, so.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of jokes built in there.
It's really more of a therapy session. It's like 1 hour long.
Letisha, I want to
Yeah.
ask, this idea of organizing our episodes, figuring out the steps that we need to do which I highly recommend everyone document, right? Like figure out what needs to happen. But when it comes to the actual documentation, training, do you recommend, and maybe this is too organized, do you recommend like creating a standard operating procedure, a document of some sort to manage by? And I know, like obviously you being, this is your facility, right? So I imagine that you have some thoughts on this that would
Yeah.
be good for us all.
Well, I think we're probably coming from it like your business is attached to your podcast flows
Correct.
into your business. So you have a very structured way that he flows between his business and his podcast. And so that's one way, that's a whole other sort of topic in my head. So I'm gonna put myself in just like the independent podcaster who just wants to podcast. And I don't know if you really need a whole lot of structure for it being more of a passion, a hobby kind of thing, right? And so I would say a process for someone who just wants to get out there and get their voice out there and talk about what they love and build an audience from that. I would start with really your podcast platform, where you are going to distribute the podcast. Buzzsprout is in the building. Like they gave you 3 months free. Start there. And I would look at all of the features and the perks that platform gives you. So Buzzsprout goes all the way from, we will distribute your show to all the players. We will help you create your show notes, meaning they will listen to your show and create, in the podcast description, what it's about for you using AI. They'll give you a title, right? They'll make it sound better by some AI audio magic, right? So go and look at all the different distribution platforms and say, okay, who can do like the most work for me? And that's what I think you should build your process around. And so for me, back in the day, and you guys remember, like AI has changed everything, right? We weren't uploading transcripts to ChatGPT. We were thinking, what the heck this podcast is about, da-da-da-da. We were handwriting everything. So I think now is a great time to start a podcast because AI has improved distribution. And it's almost like you can get like 90% of your podcast done with one particular. Editing is the thing that is a little harder to get in one place, editing your pods. So you may have like an editing process and a marketing distribution process. But I would start with who can give me the most bang for my buck and build your process out from there.
And then basically everybody that you see in any of these rooms today is going to talk about Buzzsprout. And they're sponsoring, but they are here in Jacksonville. You can talk to somebody, you can talk to Tom, you can talk to Albin today. And they are they made our lives so much easier.
Yep.
Same. I'm a
the
paying
co-host,
customer. Paying customer.
Yeah, same
Started
here.
with
We all,
Paying customers.
yeah,
Not sponsored.
yeah, not sponsored.
Another room, and they said it's only $10 a month.
For the base, for
Different
the
tiers.
base one,
For 3
and then
hours a month, I think.
for
Yeah.
3 hours a month, and then so obviously it's going to go up the more hours. So it depends. Again, if you're going to do a podcast bi-weekly and they're going to be 45 minutes each time, that's probably a great plan. For us, our episodes can go upwards of an hour or two, and we do weekly. So for us, we need a bigger plan. We also have some of the bells and whistles like the co-host
Co-host
AI,
AI,
which will give us that
cleans up
transcript,
the audio
the
too.
show notes,
Yeah.
that magic kind of filter. So all that will increase the price, but just to start, I mean, that's a great in.
Roughly, what do you guys spend
Honestly,
with the hub on hubs?
What's our
Buzzsprout.
Buzzsprout.
Buzzsprout's like around 50, probably around 50. But we have quite a bit. I mean, we're probably at
That's
least
just a monthly cost, $50?
$50 just to
It's
start.
not
They're fully maxed out though, and these guys have
Yeah,
they've
we
done.
have everything.
You hit that threshold, they're like, give us all of it, because they're at the point where they need that.
Yeah.
My show is 15 minutes long. I pay $12 a month, and I have been forever. I think since 2018 when I started with them. And so I've been spending $12 a month, and I've never gone anywhere near over my time because it's not, the show doesn't warrant it. Yeah. I have another friend, they do a daily show that's every episode's at minimum an hour. And they wanted every single tool like these guys. They probably spend the same amount as you, but for them, they're like, I don't have to have any of these other tools, so it's worthy of it. But yeah. And speaking of tools, I think that's a good place for us to go, because getting to 10 episodes and beyond isn't just your own strategy internally. Like, using the right tool set, I think, really matters a lot. Like, to me, like, knowing what you're going to use, how you're going to use it, is huge, because so many of us, new tools come out every day, and I'll tell you what, you can get fatigued real quick by just testing everything. Unless you have like a podcast or channel for that, you don't need to like be like, all right, I'm going to try 15 different hosting providers, right? Like, choose one that works for you and stick with it, right? Like, I think that's a really important element of this. And so I know there might be some questions here, so if you all have any, like, specifically like the software, the platform side of things, questions, like, let's talk about them. But in general, I think that each of us can just share what we do. And so Buzzsprout, real quick, is what I use. And I use Riverside, which is another partner here, to do my recording, because it's all remote. I use my own platform, Podmatch, for finding my guests. And then I use cal.com for scheduling guests, which is a totally free tool. It literally just schedules back and forth with them. And then Podpage for the website. And that's all I need, and those are the 5 things that I use and I suggest to people as well. So it handles all this stuff mostly automatically for me, where I'm not having to like be in it all the time. So you had a question real quick before we move on down the list? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted maybe if you could give us like a quick example of like a flow of like from let's say you created the podcast. Now what? Like, how does it get to the?
So I'll just tell you, I'll tell you the process I just did for my latest episode. It starts with the inspiration of what the heck I want to talk about. Sometimes it takes some days. When you're in season and you didn't do your 10 episodes and now you're at number 90 or something, what do I want to talk about? So throughout the week, I'm thinking, what's inspiring me? What happened to me? I'm like, okay, this is what I want to talk about. Then for me, I actually write out a script. I'm a former news anchor, so I read a teleprompter for a living. So I know how to be natural while reading. I am reading and you would never know it. So I actually like almost journal. Like, I just brain dump what I want to say, how I want to say it in a Google Doc. Then I go and record, and I'll do my tools while I'm talking. So I'll do Google Doc for my script. I'll go to, I record in Podcastle.ai. I'm old school. I've been with him for a while. And it's just a very easy, user-friendly recording software. So I press record. I talk into my mic and I record it. I'm reading my script. I'm ad-libbing. I'm doing my thing. Stop recording. That also gives me a transcript. I get my transcript from Podcastle. I clean up my audio inside Podcastle, edit it. And then I go to ChatGPT. This is probably my third tool now. I pay for ChatGPT Pro. I upload my transcript there and say, give me 3 options for show notes. It knows my voice. Give me 3 titles. I grab my favorite. I take my MP3, and then I go to an unnamed podcast distribution site, because it's all about Buzzsprout today. I'm with someone else. And I upload my MP3, I put my show notes title in there, and I schedule it for Friday. That's 1 episode. And those are mostly all my tools. ChatGPT, Podcastle, you need a place to distribute. Riverside for my clients who have video. It's a virtual recording studio, so
Riverside what?
Riverside.fm.
.fm, yep.
What was the code that give you like a really good discount here today?
In your bag. I'm not
it's in
sure,
the bag.
but
Okay. All right, cool.
Yep, it's 20% off. Yeah, JPU 20.
it's
Okay,
the
great.
best.
Cool,
It's the
thanks.
number
Great.
1 virtual recording.
What is virtual recording?
Virtual.
Riverside.
It's a better Zoom.
A better
So-
Zoom, yeah.
Optimized for.
Correct.
If you're interviewing someone.
Yeah, if you're doing stuff remotely, it's really good. So like, although we're in the same location, we do all of ours remotely. So he'll do it from his house, I'll do it from my house. And that's how we do our video portion. We have been audio up until maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So we had already been used to recording separately, not in the same location. So we were already using that service. Doing the video now, It's just an extra bonus. It's also has an editing software within that. So once the episode is done, like our process to kind of go in theme with the topic is we had to do we do a bonus episode called What Did I Miss? We cover everything from the previous month, but we do that as a quick turnaround where the other ones are planned every week. So that one we literally had to do 24 hours ago. Did we record last night or the night before? Tuesday? We recorded it Tuesday night and it released this morning. So the way that worked was we went ahead and did the episode. Structured is great. We did that a lot when we used to do solo episodes, was to script it out.
Yep.
For us, we're bullet points. So what is the theme? How are we opening the episode? What's the middle going to consist of? How do we close it? Those bullet points can be as intensive or as very brief as you want. We record the episode, and then the next thing is to edit that episode for both video and audio, making sure that those are done, add our intros and outros, and then we're getting it published to Buzzsprout. So Buzzsprout, by taking that MP3 feed or any distribution site that you do, they send it to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those platforms, whether you do it right then and there or if you schedule it. And that's really all it took. We did our episode artwork, which is something, again, if you choose to do, you can do the time, or you could just keep your logo on it. There's so many different options and tools that you can use, but ultimately it comes down to recording it, editing it, and posting it. That's kind of like the 3-step structure. Everything in between really depends on you and your podcast needs.
I do also think Canva is a good investment.
Great
As well,
investment, yeah.
Canva Pro, for sure. And then when anybody ever needs anything, you can be like, I have Canva Pro. I can handle that.
That's how Phil makes all of his friends. He wears a shirt that says, I have Canva Pro. They're like, hey.
I can do that for you.
I'm 110% sure this was from Canva. It's definitely Canva. I know for sure.
It's definitely Canva. But yeah, we did all of our,
Sorry.
You can also do all your editing in Riverside. I'm very old school, so I still take the audio from Riverside and dump it into Audacity because I've been editing the podcast for 5 years now, and I have a very particular sound for how I want it. But you can do all of that in Riverside and probably save yourself some time. I choose to be crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know
we
what
had one.
Riverside, sorry,
Oh, no, you're good.
Riverside cost?
What do we pay for Riverside?
It depends.
We can Google.
Yeah, it
Somebody
depends
just look it up.
again. We pay, I think, about
Okay, anyway.
$20 a
can't
month.
remember.
There's all
But we
kinds of
also,
tiers, though.
but I was gonna say,
Yeah.
we're also maxed out, so there are lower plans with less hours. We obviously need a lot more because we're doing an episode a week, and those episodes again can go 1 to 2 hours sometimes. So that all adds up.
I think as the 15-minute episode guy, I'm paying about half of what they are.
Half of
So
what?
it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
yeah.
It's a huge spectrum.
And they also just added a feature too, like obviously this is way into the, if you ever decide to do this, they do have a feature where you can live stream to Twitch, to YouTube, something like that. So it's all built into Riverside.
built in, yeah.
So I think he had a question right
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Real quick, and it's more, while we're on the topic of tools, and it might be a little more technical, but to get the best sound, or once it's distributed, is like you said, mentioned MP3, is 128 the standard, 192, 256? What's optimal rendered audio file?
This is so out of my wheelhouse. Do any of you know the answer here?
I use Wave.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, Wave is actually better.
Wave format is great. I think
Sounds better.
Buzzsprout eventually does decode it to MP3 for when they post it out, but Wave will give you the most like top tier. I think the number's 144 that you're asking for, but I would ask somebody specifically from Buzzsprout because those are the guys that drill that down.
And
100%.
most platforms, you're not going to have to really play around with that.
Yep.
When you go to export, it's already, you'd say MP3 or Wave, you just pick Wave, and it'll do that for you.
Yep.
Thank you.
We have a question back here as well. Yes.
All right, as you all kind of explained your process, my question is more so aligned with time management. How long would you say it takes from brainstorming to scripting out to recording to uploading and kind of going through that full process? Is it like you do it all in a day or like
That's a good
what is the
question.
timing?
Yeah, it's a great
Really
question.
good question.
Real quick, I like to batch things, so I do try to set aside time on my calendar. I'm very organized, so I like to be like, hey, this Thursday, the second half of my day is all devoted to the podcast. So I'll let these guys talk. I do like to set my calendar, knowing that like, okay, I'm going to knock out as many as I can then. But we each have really different answers here. But
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of kick things off, I mean, it really depends on, again, what your podcast is going to be, how long your episodes are going to be, and what you're trying to accomplish. So what your show is going to be about. But for us, we just started recently trying to get into that better habit. We're trying to stay about a month ahead of our episodes because other than the topical one, which needs to be a real-time kind of done job, everything else can be done in advance. All of our series lend itself to that. So planning that out is one thing. Sometimes, depending on your topic, it might be something you need to do and have a quick turnaround. Another time, it can be scheduled ahead of time. When you come to prepping it, though, again, that's where it can get into a little bit of a wider answer and how long that takes. Can I ask, do you already have a podcast, or you're thinking about one?
Progress.
Okay. What is your topic going to be about? Motherhood. Okay. What's your purpose? Your why?
Ooh, I'm still kind of thinking about that, but more so, I'm a writer as well, so I want to kind of use narrative form writing to describe my experiences as a first-time mom.
Cool.
That's fantastic.
As a first-time Black mom.
And do you have an idea of how long you would like your episodes to be? Have you thought that far ahead?
15 to 20 minutes each.
There we go. That's fantastic. And is that like a weekly release, or?
I'm thinking bi-weekly.
Okay.
Really that's why I'm asking the time minute.
And there's literally no wrong answer, because what works for your schedule is going to probably be the first part of that whole discussion. But if I was just to use that example to kind of set the tone, like 15 to 20 minute episodes bi-weekly, I mean, if you're going to script it all out, I would say, and maybe as a scripter, you could say, agree, it's like at least double the time.
Yeah.
Right, just prep. So
I'll speak for like the people. So I finished my podcast before this started, and it comes out tomorrow at 5 a.m. So let me speak to the people who, like, you're past your 10, let's say you organize the heck out of it, now you're in the season, and sometimes you get behind, you take a 3-week break, your batch is done. What do? You told your people you're out every Friday. So this can look a number of different ways. I've been in my bed on voice memo out of town saying, hey everybody, welcome to With Everything, I'm Letisha Bereola. So I'm recording this on my phone, I needed to get da-da-da, right? So it can be spontaneous. It can be, it's 3 o'clock on a Thursday. I do this every Friday. Let me do something real quick. Don't let structure and schedule and prep stop you. Because once you're in the game, like I said, you're podcasting forever. You're never gonna stop. So there'll be times when it's, especially as a new mom, you're not gonna have a whole lot of time to sit and ponder about the podcast. You may have to just get on your mic real quick and say, hey guys, baby's down for a nap. Let me tell you real quick what I learned today, and you do it. So free yourself.
I'm stay-at-home mom as well, so that's
Cool.
really
You're gonna need that.
Kind of how it's gonna
You're
go.
gonna need it. Take it.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, is again, we can kind of give you a baseline of where that would be. So again, maybe double the time for
2
prep if you
hours.
really want to go into it.
For mine, it's about an hour to flesh it out in Google Doc, and it's probably another hour cleaning that up, editing and posting. But that's after eons of doing this. It used to take me longer.
And Phil,
so for us-
you'd probably agree, just the editing part alone, depending on how intricate you want to be about that, that could be double the recording time.
Yeah, whatever the episode is, if it's a 30-minute episode, I usually plan on it's going to take me an hour at least to edit it. So, and then as far as planning out stuff, excuse me. So we have gotten to the point now where we have a small Patreon following, like very tiny. So we give like a pre-show and a post-show. And pre-show, as part of like a Patreon perk, they get to hear us talk about what our process is going to be. What's the next episode that we're going to do? What are we discussing? Do you guys have any suggestions, anything like that? So that's an easy way to make that process. You can make that content.
Yeah.
Cool. And by the way, I really like that you're trying to keep it to 15, 20 minutes. That's smart, because if your listeners are going to also be first-time mothers, think about the time that they have available, right?
Yeah.
And you want to make it for them. So, yes.
For those of us that haven't edited a podcast before, how extensive is that, and are the tools that are out there pretty simple, or do you need some kind of background knowledge to be able to dive into that?
What are you editing?
The audio?
So yeah,
the podcast.
When I think about this, I do 15-minute episodes, and I actually don't edit them. All I do is clip out my awkward silence at the beginning, at the end, because I leave like a little pause, and I don't want that in the video or in the audio, right? I remove that. That's the only editing that I do. It is totally up to you. I know some people, they will edit out every little thing that isn't perfect, and their audience likes that. There we go, right? Their audience appreciates that, and they know that that's what they show up expecting. And so like, it's really up to you. A lot of these modern tools, like Riverside, they are a sponsor today, but I'm a paying customer of theirs. Like, they don't need to sponsor me to say this. You can do the editing there, and you can actually remove filler words. So if you want, you say, every time I said remove that, and it can do that. And so it's actually using text editing as well. So you go in there. Weirdly enough, I tried this. I said the wrong number one time, and I was like, man, I don't want to record this again. I don't edit. I went there and changed the number, and it made me say the right number. And so that was pretty on the video, too. It's pretty impressive. I was like, cool. That was the only time I've ever done that. I've done it one time. I don't want to get into that too much. But the point is, it's as much or as little as you want. So again, I edit if I'm going to edit, it's going to be the video and the audio at the same time, the same file on Riverside, because it's also when I'm recording it.
Also,
we all do something different, though.
Really quick, write down Descript, right? I don't know how to, Descript.
Descript, yeah.
Descript. Another where you can edit your words. So like, your first blabbering of trying to figure out what you're going to say, you can just erase the words. It's kind of hard to explain, but the point is there are tools now that make editing like very easy. When we first started, we were using Audacity and all these weird things, but AI has improved so much that don't let the editing part fool you. It goes back to find the platform that does the most for you.
Yep. Yeah, and I think I'll just throw out there really quick on topic, because I know we have a couple more questions we definitely want to get to. There's a lot of options, and I would say not one thing serves all of the purposes you need. That's been the hard reality we've kind of learned. Like, I'll have two different recording platforms, and I'm like, man, if they could just merge together and have this option and this option for why I'm paying for them, I would love it. But for some people, you don't even need that. Again, there are free services. Like, if you didn't want to spend any money other than to do the distribution, which I highly recommend, but it is something you can do on your own, you could figure that process out, distribute your podcast by yourself. You could go on Zoom, record, and you could just go ahead and either use Audacity for free editing, or you don't edit it, right? That might be your goal, just to get started, or what you desire, or what works within your time frame. Again, if you only have so much time, that might be how you have to start out. Or you can be a little bit more meticulous and say, these are all the things I want to do, what's going to meet my needs. And I just say, try it. There's a bunch of free trials out there for a lot of these services. Give it a shot. But it's going to really just depend on what your individual needs are to find that right one. And a lot of us struggle to find that sometimes, depending on our needs.
Yeah. Any other questions regarding the, yes, there's one. Sorry, go ahead, yes.
Oh, was it regarding?
Just like the topic we're on right now, like the tech and stuff like that. But go ahead, let's hear it though. Let's hear it.
Go ahead.
So my name is Julicia. I work with freelancer working with different clients. Some of them have podcasts, and so this is about longevity. And so I guess my question is, how, from a consultant's standpoint, or just someone trying to give the best recommendation, what is the best way to pivot when the well of ideas start running dry? Is it, how do you know when it's time to say, okay, this is a limited series, this is great, we did everything, versus, okay, we're kind of running dry, do we revamp, do we add in? Like, how do you distinguish that? How do you tell when it's time to wrap it up?
I've got two things I do, if that's right. I'll just jump in here. The first thing I do is I look at the data. What episodes were the most popular? Where were the spikes at? It seems like it just resonated with everybody. Is that a topic of its own that I could drill into more? And so for me, I always say if it's important we repeat it, I repeat the episodes that do the best. It's not the same exact episode, but I'm gonna rehash that same idea in a different way. The other thing is talk to the listeners. So like if you're representing clients, tell your clients, start talking to who's listening and figure out what else are they struggling with? What else do they expect that I can do for them, right? Like what are they thinking is out there? To me, nothing has been better than talking to my listeners. That's how I learned to make shorter episodes. My episodes used to be really long, and I talked to a bunch of my listeners, a whole bunch of them. They all said it's too long, every single one of them. They're like, Alex, you're a nice guy, you talk too much. I'm like, oh, well, there's something there, right? You don't know unless you actually talk to who's listening. And I think once you get, especially past 10 episodes in, you can start having conversations with the people that are listening. Yep. How you reach out is social media, email, however you can find a way to get in contact with them. Even if you're doing a post saying, hey, I'd love to talk, because that's what I did, and people started DMing me, so I just got on quick little calls with them.
I would say also try to distinguish whether it's burnout from producing the podcast every week and everyone's tired of doing the podcast, or if it's truly a problem of we really are tired, we have nothing else to talk about. Because oftentimes those two things feel the same, like you're just like, oh, I gotta do this podcast again, and you're just burnt out from the work of it. So try to like piece out, is it a production problem we're all like struggling to keep up with and it's just being too much? Or is it truly that we just don't have anything to talk about? I feel like majority of the time, if you guys chose a podcast your host really are passionate about and really love, most likely it's not that they have nothing to talk about. It's just the podcast itself is becoming too much.
That's good.
Yeah, and then there are instances as well where somebody will start a podcast and they know that it does have an end date. Friends of ours, they did a Game of Thrones / House of Dragon podcast. That's done.
Cool.
And now they are reevaluating and they're going to start up a new project here very, very soon. So that's also okay. There's so many rewatch podcasts out right now. So sometimes you can start a show and knowing that there is going to be an end date. That is also okay.
Yeah, and I won't go into the full story just for the sake of time, but you can always come up and ask us. We started out again casually, like just talking friends like in a room, in the same room. We did no editing, so all that.
We shared a microphone.
All that
That I
was.
got
You cannot find those episodes anywhere. So just remember, it's okay. Sometimes you can start all over. Sometimes you can rebrand. Sometimes you can revamp your episodes. Something I heard recently was from an artist that talked about like why he redistributes his old music. He makes content about it. And if 1 million people heard that song, nobody heard it. There's still so many people out there in the world that need to hear your story and hear what you have to say. So don't be afraid to start over, even if you're well into something, unless you're very well established with an audience that you need to communicate that to. And in that case, I think you talk to your listeners, you have that conversation, that buy-in. If people are on Patreon, those are the first people for us that's, give us support monthly. Those are the first people we want to hear from because they're going that extra mile for us. But if you are a podcaster and you have listeners and you think maybe I want to pivot, you just kind of determine your relationship with that audience and see if a conversation needs to happen. Otherwise, rebranding is not going to stop the world. And if anything, it could help. It shouldn't stop you from doing that.
Cool. So we're at time here, but I do want to ask each of you to stay up here for a little bit longer.
Yeah, sure.
Each of them has probably said something that resonated with you. You can kind of figure out which one you most feel like, okay, I'm similar to thinking like this individual. Come up and talk to them, please. And the last thought I want to give today that I think is really important, each of us up here, I'm glad we ended up on a panel together. We've been in podcasting longer than there was such thing as a podcasting community. I remember the first time that I thought it was my friends making fun of me because I had a friend who always made fun of me for having a podcast because it wasn't always cool, believe it or not. And he's like, you gonna go to that dorky podcasting conference? I'm like, there's not a podcasting conference, dude. And he goes, yeah, there is. I saw an ad for it. I'm like, you're messing with me. And he showed me, I'm like, there's podcasters getting together? I was like, yes, I'm going. Bought a ticket and drove down to Orlando like a couple days later because I was like, yeah, I didn't know that there were podcasters like that. Community is so, so important in this. Podcasting does happen to be somewhat one-sided, especially at first. It feels like you're just speaking to the void and that you're just alone. Don't let that be the case. Meet somebody in this room, meet one of us up here, meet the people that are running JPU. It's up Otter in the back, right? Like, meet these individuals and have some people in your corner because it is going to feel lonely, but I'll tell you what, like, I think anything worth doing at one point starts off with you feeling like you're the only one who cares about it. You're the only one who's there. Get yourself around people that can help uplift you and keep you going because that's what makes this thing worthwhile for a long-term part of your life and that's going to really impact listeners. So
I want to add something else.
Yeah.
Who you're talking because you're talking about Podfest, which is like what we
Yeah,
definitely want to. I'll just say this, and I don't want to make promises that Buzzsprout has to keep, but in past years, they have bought tickets for JPU members to attend. And you go for free. You just have to pay for your hotel, but that's how we went the first year.
That's how we went, yep.
So twice, we've been twice.
Added that, they do have some tickets for podcast movement in Dallas.
Dallas.
There you go.
Find Tom or Alvin.
come hang out with me, guys. That'd be fun. Well, cool. Well, thank you again, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.